Oh. Good evening, everyone, or good whatever. Good to see all of you. Welcome to this Bodhicaryavatara session. And apparently you can hear me. So let's start. And please start by developing the right motivation. And since today is Mother's Day, so remember that the Buddhists think that all sentient beings at one point, in our previous lives have been our kind mothers. That is normally how we develop bodhicitta, that we remember their kindness and that we want to repay it. And for that, we practice compassion and love. And that then gives rise to bodhicitta. So please do that, Please remember that all sentient beings in all the different lives have been very caring and protective to us or with us. And so please feel that we are all interconnected and that we want to be grateful and give back that kindness that we have received. So please tune your mind with that motivation so that in this light we will study the Bodhicaryavatara. Okay, so, or maybe some of you need the text from yesterday. I sent it to you. Wait a moment. Here. So here in the chat, I will send the text if I find the chat here. That is just a part of the Bodhicaryavatara translated by Stephen Batchelor, together with some Geluk, Tulkus, and Geshes. And yesterday we finished in verse 32, but just in a few minutes, where we are, in case you are new here. So we are studying, of course, the Bodhicaryavatara by Shantideva, and it's about the way or the style or the conduct of the Bodhisattvas. That is pervaded by compassion and the wish to bring all sentient beings to Buddhahood. And so the conduct or way or style of Bodhisattva is that we basically act in terms of the 6 parameters. And in Shantideva's text here, the first 3 chapters and the last chapter is more dedicated to generosity. And then 4th and 5th chapter is related to discipline. And this is where we are. And then the other chapters, they teach then the remaining parameters. So here we are in the parameter of discipline. And Shantideva is not so explicitly teaching the discipline, but here in chapter 4 and 5, he's giving us the tools, the mindfulness and the introspection, alertness, carefulness, conscientiousness, to be able to really practice the discipline. So, and so these are like the key terms here: mindfulness, remembering what Buddha said, how we should behave, and then introspection or alertness to check if we do it accordingly or if we are tempted to do different things that are harmful to ourselves or others. And then the conscientiousness or carefulness that we then come back to what Buddha has taught in case we go astray. And so where are we? Here we are. And so this is where we are. And we are at the moment in verse 33, which is exactly talking about how to practice mindfulness or introspection. And so verse, and we talked already about that, what were the others? Yeah, that we rely on a teacher. We talked about that yesterday, you know, how important a teacher is to really make us practice these qualities. And then we talked about how we then really apply this mindfulness and introspection. And in verse 33, that is where we are, it's sort of the last verse, how we can really generate that alertness or introspection. And as usual, if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand here in this Zoom thing, and then I will unmute you and discuss. Okay. So, verse 33 is saying, when mindfulness is set with purpose of guarding the doorway of the mind. This example we already talked about yesterday, you know, that our mind is compared to a house, and that we don't want the robbers or bandits coming into our house and steal our precious belongings. The bandits are the negative emotions, and the precious belongings that might be in our house is merit, you know, that we have accumulated in the past or in the present, or that we might accumulate in the future. And so we don't want that these robbers enter our house, and therefore here Shantideva is saying, therefore at the gateway, you know, at the doorway of your house, please put the mindfulness there, and be very alert, so then no intruder is coming in. And here it says then, if mindfulness is placed there, then alertness will come about. So this alertness or introspection or vigilance, you know, where we really look into our mind and see what is happening in our mind, that will then naturally arise. And also in the last line here of verse 33, even that which had gone will return. So maybe we just re-strengthen the introspection that we have, or if it was lost or forgotten or scattered, you know, then it comes back. So this also shows what I tried to explain yesterday, that there's a strong relationship between mindfulness and alertness. You know, there's a strong relationship between first we understand what to do and what not to do, and then alertness or vigilance is then really checking our mind constantly, watching our mind. Like Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche is calling watcher, you know, for this sheshin in Tibetan, this mind, this alertness or vigilance, that we are just watching. And Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche is also saying that this sheshin or this vigilance or watcher, that is actually the same thing, you know, in the higher yanas like Mahamudra or Dzogchen, where we just watch without interfering. We are just knowing what is happening in our mind. So this knowing here is the most important thing. But of course, here in the Sutrayana context, we are leaving it with the knowing. But then, as I said yesterday, then when we notice and know that our mind is tempted to do dodgy things, then of course, in the Sutrayana context, we apply the antidote of carefulness, so that we remember the benefits of behaving properly, and that we remember the disadvantages of behaving in a dodgy way, and then we come back to our discipline. And so that is this verse 33. And of course, what is true in all cases is always, you know, if we do that again and again, if we familiarize ourselves again and again with placing the mindfulness there, you know, at the gateway of our mind, then everything, then that will get easier and easier, In the beginning, of course, we are distracted so often, and it maybe takes minutes or hours, until we really notice that we have been distracted for so long. So therefore, it might be quite discouraging in the beginning, but then if we do it again and again with our practice, then we will become better in the sense of being less distracted. And it happens so easily because, normally we have a thought, and that is totally fine. So just one innocent thought is totally fine, but then usually we have another thought built upon that first thought, and then we have already like a chain of thought or chain of thoughts, and it's like a tiny story already, and then comes the third thought and the fourth, and then the story is building up, and we are getting more and more entangled in the story, and every story is sort of taking us away from the presence, or from reality, or from the truth. So therefore, that is here that we notice that as soon as possible and not go into the stories. That is the idea here. I hope that is clear. If not, please raise all your hands you have. Or write your remark in the chat, whatever is good for you. Okay, since there's nothing, then we come to the next part here of chapter 5, which is going from now verse 34 until verse 96. And here Shantideva is really explaining the parameter of discipline. I don't know if discipline is a good word in English. In German, it doesn't sound so good. It sounds like being forced to do something, or reluctantly doing something, or being or whatever. And but in Buddhist context, it's not like that. It's in Tibetan, it's Zudem. It's just the manner of rules. Or
came back in again. I told you.
What? But I just mute you guys, then you can talk. Okay. So what did I want to say? Discipline is not some burden, but discipline in Buddhist context is really to make our life easier, and simplify our life, because discipline helps us to stay out of trouble, basically. Usually our distraction, and our negative emotions, they are so tempting, and they bring us into trouble. And discipline is the opposite of it. It really makes our life easier, and more simple and more clear by that, and more focused, so that we are not scattered emotionally or mentally or physically, but that we are really on the point, and that we can then do what we really prioritize. Here's a question by Marina. I think you can read it. Is there a difference between being caught up in stories and contemplating a topic which can become chains of stories? Okay, let's assume you're talking about contemplating an important topic, right? I mean, we could contemplate about how to grow potatoes in south of France. That might lead to another story. So, to try to answer, if usually, our thought process is very much unconscious, and just like one thought after the other is coming. I think Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche is saying, like one thought is like a rabbit, and then if another thought comes, then you know what rabbits do, they reproduce a lot and they multiply easily. So that is how thoughts normally happen, So therefore we need, in this example, maybe we need like an anti-conception, to prevent the rabbits to reproduce. So we need this mindfulness, like a anti-conception. That is how we usually function, in a more unaware and unconscious way. But if we try to contemplate on a specific topic, then hopefully we are really aware. Let's say we contemplate on impermanence, then we hopefully do like one thought after the other in a more conscious way, and we are aware that now we are thinking that sentence and now we are thinking in that direction. So that's why it's called what is called Leitung, or it's like a contemplative meditation. So, and since it's a meditation, it has to be aware. It has to be as non-conceptual, of course, as possible. But we have here analytical meditation that I'm talking about, or you are talking about, I think. So it has to be aware, and at least you have to be present, These two things have to be in this analytical meditation or contemplation when we contemplate or analyze a topic, like impermanence. So therefore we then hopefully are aware in that process and remembering what Buddha or our teachers have said, and then try to apply it to our own lives, and compare it to our own ways of thinking. So this thread or continuity of awareness is super important in that kind of contemplative meditation. So therefore, that is the big difference to our normal way of getting entangled in stories. And we are not even aware of it, That's the point, I think of something, and then comes another thought, and then the third thought, and another fourth thought, then a whole story builds up, and maybe like that mental movie is like playing for 20 minutes, and then only I understand, oh wait, I'm totally got entangled and caught up in that story, in that emotion, in that mental reality, which is not really reality, like this mental prison, So yes, as Pallavi is writing, the difference is usually we are totally unaware when one thought leads to the other, but in a contemplative meditation, we are really as aware as possible, and therefore like consciously sort of giving a direction to the contemplation. Okay. So, Tudem, discipline, that is what we actually want here. And in the classical Buddhist text, and also here in Shantideva, which is a classical Buddhist text, we are talking about discipline like in three ways. First is avoiding negativities. Second is gathering virtues. And third is benefiting sentient beings. So that is what we are doing here, also in Shantideva's text. It's a little bit to the essence of Buddhism, when Buddha was asked and Buddha said, what is my teaching? My teaching is not harm anyone, help everyone, and tame your own mind. I mean, that is more like the general idea of the three jhanas, and here it's a little bit similar, that we also start with, we avoid negativity. That means we try not to harm anyone. That is, since Pallavi is writing it, it is like the outline that is given by the commentaries, and it is how discipline, or the second parameter, usually is introduced. So here we start with that, avoiding negativity. And negativity here in Buddhism is not like a dogmatic, moralistic thing where we try to be puritanically good, and clean. But negativity is basically whatever harms, whatever harms ourselves or others, whatever is creating suffering, or pain in ourselves or others. This is what we want to avoid here, and that of course makes it clear that discipline is not really a burden, but it makes our life lighter, and less burdened actually. So this part here starts with verse 34. So there are a couple of verses now that talk about that, that we want to train our mind by avoiding negativity and by purifying our body, speech, and mind. And then Shantideva is going into like 27 situations, where we usually act negatively, but which we want to avoid here, finally. And also our good old piece of wood, is coming in here. That is really the part of the text where Shantideva is using that example, that whatever negativity or difficult situation in our mind is happening, when we want to act jealously or with arrogance, or proud, we act proudly because we managed not to eat the second slice of pizza that we talked yesterday about, then just be like a log of wood, don't move, don't go into that, don't get entangled in the story of being proud. Okay, verse 34. When just as I'm about to act, I see that my mind is tainted with defilement. At such a time, I should remain unmovable like a piece of wood. So, first line. First, it is important, that we really know what motivation we have, and then it's important to remember, the teachings of our teacher or Buddha, what motivation we should cultivate and what motivation we should avoid. And then once we have tuned our mind to the correct motivation, then it is important to apply mindfulness and vigilance here. So once our mind is directed properly, which here the direction of this text, of course, is bodhicitta, then based on that and with that framework, we then try here to apply these qualities of mindfulness and alertness. But if we then see, that is the second line, that our mind is sort of self-centered, and our motivation is self-centered, then it's very important to remember that self-centeredness or self-importance, how Tziga Kongtrul Rinpoche is putting it, is really creating suffering for us and others now and in the future. And therefore Shantideva is saying, apply the antidote. And I don't know if you have read, for example, Dzogchen Rinpoche's book on emotional rescue, but one important way that he is describing is like giving us a gap, So that is here also what Shantideva is doing, We are not jumping into the self-centeredness, and then getting caught up in it, but we sort of create a distance to it. We are we're creating a gap between sort of ourselves and that self-centeredness. That is, of course, like philosophically not properly put, like ourselves and self-centeredness. But let's say creating a gap between our true nature and self-centeredness. And that gap happens, if, as Shantideva says, at such a time I should remain unmovable like a piece of wood. That is here the main method, that gap, that unmovable, that being unmovable. And the wood here means really like that. I think yesterday accidentally I said being stoic. I'm not really well versed in Greek philosophy, but I understand like maybe being stoic is similar to that. So that we are not following that negative intention or negative attitude or destructive emotion, or the wish, to do something physically or verbally, that we just don't react to that. We just notice it, but we are not we don't follow them, maybe when we are annoyed, we do strange things, like, what is it called? Maybe yawning too loud, or maybe that we do when we are bored, right? Or, I mean, they're really like small things, like, or sighing like, extra loud, if we are annoyed, or whatever, so we don't follow this wish to do those things, with our body and mind and speech that are motivated by negative emotions. Because that is just not wise, as Trungpa Rinpoche said, whatever the emotions, the negative emotions, whenever we have a negative emotion, then, and we are controlled by it, then our mind is getting blinded, and also unskillful. That is what Khyentse Rinpoche adds to that. So therefore, don't do it. But just as Ponma Rinpoche said, create that gap, and not follow these negative emotions, but have a healthy distance to them. And as Jon is saying, they come back quickly. It doesn't matter. They come and go also. If they can come so quickly, then they can also go so quickly. And then actually that helps us. If we are a little bit more playful, then because we have that gap or distance, then the emotions are more workable, and we can have a more light or playful attitude towards the emotions, and towards us and towards the world, and I think that is the best kind of humor, you have to have that lightness or playfulness, and that is possible, if we are not drawn into these negative emotions. Pallavi, you asked about the 27. This will come later. I was just giving like a preview. Okay, Marina is asking, what if you notice a mix of motivation, some negative, some positive? What? Yesterday you also asked a question. I thought this is totally me speaking. And today too, I mean, my emotions are always mixed, I'm not a serial killer, like in the movie Natural Born Killer. No, I'm not that totally negative. And also I'm not a Buddha, like totally positive. So, but I'm a very mixed person, I'm in the middle, let's say, of these. And so I have my negative emotions and positive emotions, and often they come together, And I think as long as we are on the path, we have to accept that, we have to accept that even though we sit down and develop compassion and bodhicitta, or even though we are maybe married to a husband and wife, and we say we love you, we have to admit, that there's always a negative emotion in it, a self-centeredness in it, only a Buddha, or maybe high-end bodhisattvas, on the bhumis like 8, 9, and 10, maybe they don't have it really anymore, But in for us, like, let's say we are all like ordinary beings on the path, then our emotions are always mixed. And but again, don't feel guilty that this is the case. Don't feel don't beat yourself up. That would be another negative emotion. Like yesterday, if you're then pride of not eating the second slice of pizza, that is then another negative emotion which doesn't help. So likewise here, don't beat yourself up if let's say you practice compassion or bodhicitta, but then some negativity comes in. That is just the definition of somebody on the path, it's imperfection. But I think His Holiness Khyentse Rinpoche gave that advice. So therefore, just try to, an emotion is not one big thing, but it's positive thoughts and negative thoughts that are not really mixed, because according to Abhidharma, they are not cannot be at the same time. So they are just multitasking, coming one after the other. So therefore, whenever you feel a negative thought is coming, then don't go into it. And whenever there's a positive thought or positive emotion coming, then go into it, and nourish it. That is basically the mind training that we do. That is how Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche explained it when he taught on the 7 points of mind training. Try to, see the mixed thoughts and emotions that are happening, and then, nourish the good ones and don't get entangled in the bad ones. Okay, good. So Jiangshi is saying, but we can't mix at one moment. You're good and virtuous, and others you are absurd, but at two different moments. Yeah, that's what I mean, Our mind is not multitasking. That is what all the Abhidharma texts say, You only can have like one thing at one single small tiny moment in your mind, So that is the good thing. So therefore, yes, it's not actually mixed, but it's just one after the other in a very fast sequence. And that is how Buddhist practice works. That you just try to put positive thoughts in, that is sort of in the beginning how Buddhist practice works, that you put as much positive thoughts into your mind and not going into negative ones, and that, because as long as you have a positive thought in that moment or that period of time, you can't have a negative. So that is the idea that is based on that Abhidharma understanding that they can't be together. What are we doing here? Discipline, So we try to bring discipline in our mind, and that cancels out the opportunity to do negative things. In the next chapter, chapter 6, we try to bring patience in our mind, and that cancels out the chance in that moment to be angry or full of hate. And then in the 7th chapter, we bring enthusiasm or joyful diligence in your mind, and that cancels out laziness. In that moment, then of course, as Jon says, like laziness or the emotions come back, but again, then our antidote has to come back. And then in the 8th chapter, yes, we bring single-pointedness in our mind, and that cancels out distraction. And then in the 9th chapter, wisdom to eliminate ignorance. or being there to eliminate not being there, not being here. Being here to eliminate being there. That is the idea of wisdom, I guess. And also of meditation. So, so we use that logic like in all the Buddhist practices, if we have also in Vajrayana, we train in pure perception. And as long as you are in that pure perception, in that moment, you don't have an impure perception. And that's it. That's already good enough. Okay, let's not talk about Vajrayana here, but I don't know, Media, why you sent that to me privately. If you have a question that write something publicly, please. Actually, it's good that you're not raising hands, otherwise I don't know where to look. There are so many things here. Okay, so where are we? Yes, we are here in verse 34. So, and here it's important, to be quick, immediately, whenever we see some negative thing is happening in our mind, that we apply the antidote quickly. In German, we say, wäre den Anfängen. I don't know if that makes sense to you. It means like really right from the beginning of the obscuration or emotion, like stop it, right from the beginning. I think in English it's like a stitch in time saves 9, so you do something from the very beginning until that is not really getting big. I'm sure if you work in the garden, you know that, if you have something that you call weed, something, not the good weed that you smoke, but the weed that you want to get rid of, then, of course, if it's a small, sprout, then it's very easy to take it out, But once it's a tree, of course, it's more difficult to take it out. Or in my kitchen is always the example, if I don't clean the plate like quickly, then the sauce gets very dried, and then it's more difficult to clean the plate. So therefore, that is also the idea here, that we quickly apply the antidote. So as soon as we see some distraction or negativity in our mind, and for that we need the introspection, the alertness to see it. That moment, as quick as possible, we apply the antidote. Okay. And then verse 35. But Tanya, what I was quoting was not from a direct teaching by Khyentse Rinpoche that I have received, but it's in the book called Enlightened Courage. It's a commentary by Khyentse Rinpoche on the 7 point of mind training. And there at some point he's writing or saying or teaching that. Okay, then verse 35 is to avoid distraction, or degeneration in our mind. So here, we try to bring some focus and one-pointedness in our mind. So therefore it says, never should I look around distractedly for no purpose. I'm sure you know all the meditation instructions, like maybe some of you have read these wonderful Mahamudra texts, by the 9th Karmapa or by the 3rd Karmapa, like always the gaze, the eyes, they are always, they are a sign of a moving mind, when the eyes are very like running back and forth, but also they are a cause of a moving mind, Yeah, I think that's it, So therefore, having some discipline with in regard to your eyes is an important thing that Shantideva is here pointing out. So he's saying in the first two lines of verse 35, that we should not look like meaninglessly, around, and oh, what are others doing, or what fault can I find, or who is at fault here, and or yeah, how to impress others, like those things, and that is not the motivation or the way how we should look at the world or at other people, But we should do the following. With a resolute mind, I should always keep my eyes cast downwards. That is a little bit like advice for monks and nuns actually. I don't know, for those who know Dotoku, he sometimes said, when he was a monk for 12 or 13 years, that was really a great time, he says, because he was, for many years, he was not even looking into a face of a woman. Again, that is not about a woman's face is not something bad, it's just, as a monk, if you're heterosexual, then your idea is to restrain your sexual desire, so that's why, and for nuns, of course, if you're heterosexual, then you should not look into the face of men, so the point is, you always have, if you're ordained, you have this advice to have like half open eyes, and look downwardly, like following your nose tip, and you look down a little bit like a meditation, which also helps, the aim is the same, to be one-pointedly. So just like looking down, following your nose tip to the ground, and and just leaving your eyes like that. And then that is, of course, only the physical help. But then mentally, we should, of course, be aware of what to do and what not to do, like the conduct. And also here, some commentators say we should also be aware of emptiness, that is, of course, important, that yesterday I mentioned that, I think, when we talked about the recollection of Buddha Dhamma Sangha, we should, like here in discipline, we should not get dogmatic, or like like following the rules, kind of obsessed by that, But we should like here in this context, of course, we should understand the importance of discipline, that is a training on the relative truth level, And on that relative truth level, yes, everything is important, It's important to do the things that bring happiness, and it's important to avoid things that create suffering. But then, emptiness, the absolute truth level is always important, and that should be always practiced in union, So we should always understand that on the absolute level, there is, of course, no happiness or no suffering, that and the rules are not really like set in stones, So we should always bring in that lightness or spaciousness of the absolute. Yeah, so that is here the idea. Marina's asking, would this type of discipline apply for regular things, like, for example, walking in a park? Yes. But like yesterday, I would also say it really depends, where I live here in Berlin, it's near a big shopping street, and normally when there is no lockdown, there are so many people and so many tourists. People just like shopping and sightseeing, and then it's really good to focus my mind and to look down, and not look up too much. In a park, maybe it's not so necessary to do that, but it totally depends. So what I want to say, like yesterday also, that what I tried to say yesterday, everything is like very depends on the situation. For example, if your mind is like, say, too tight, and too, like a bonsai, very like lot of tension, and no space, no openness, then that discipline maybe is not good. And in a park, you maybe can afford to not look down, but maybe then try to be more spacious. Especially maybe if it's like a more wild kind of nature, where there are not many people. So therefore, maybe in a park you can afford that openness, and that spaciousness to bring the balance into it, That also refers to what I meant or tried to say earlier, like rules and everything on the relative level is important. But if you overdo that, then our mind becomes too narrow, too dense, too tight. And then we need the absolute, we need the space and the openness. So therefore, here again, it is important to have this alertness or introspection that what is my present problem. And if my problem is being too distracted, then yes, then apply this discipline of looking down, being focused. But if your problem is to be too unrelaxed, too tense, then that method might not, at that moment, might not be the best method. Then maybe it's more good to look outwardly, look up a little bit, feeling the space, looking at the sky, Okay, then verse 36. And here also it says, when you're not, I just read it. But in order to relax the gaze, because sometimes maybe looking down is too tense, for a short while I should look around, to bring some balance. So therefore, but of course we do that calmly, not like scatteredly, but very calmly. We lift our gaze, and feel the space, and we relax our eyes and our mind, hopefully. And then if somebody appears in my field of vision, that's so nice, if then somebody appears in front of us, then I should look at him or her and say, welcome. So here Shantideva is, I think, yes, like Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche is often saying that, then we should react to that person in a friendly, kind manner according to the local custom, So smiling might be a good thing in Germany at least, or saying nice words, welcoming somebody in my field of vision. That is definitely a beneficial method, But then, of course, if you are living on Jupiter and maybe, showing your tongue is the welcoming gesture, then do that, So that is totally, I think even in Tibet, I noticed that people show the tongue. That is actually like a good sign, It's like a sign of happiness. Okay, Medya wrote a lot. Arne said, if the stanza is an example for Shantideva to develop our discipline, of course, discipline is needed to cultivate awareness. I wonder how to strengthen discipline without object. I mean, just to be good, not to be negative, is not powerful enough to put myself into discipline. I'm asking about more applicable practice to build the confidence in me as I'm training to be courageous in taking this Bodhisattva behavior. To me, the stanza may suggest by Shantideva discipline practice from little things like where we put our awareness to side gate seeing. Discipline is always a big habit to achieve for me. I mean, here, since we are talking about Mahayana, you know, this is like Bodhisattva is the discipline, you know. That is really your rule. That is your your guiding light, you know, your common thread, you know. So to be good and not to be negative, of course, that's not enough, you know, but that is, the whole text is explaining exactly that, you know. There will be many things that will be explained what good or to be good means, and then there will be many things that are explained what negative means, you know. So and therefore it is important to study the text and with all the details, because for some people just a simple instruction is not powerful enough. And so then some people need more details, and therefore Shantideva composed like 960 verses or something. But then, of course, there are also people who are lovers of the essence, you know, and for them, then maybe just one sentence is enough, you know. So therefore, it's important to see what is helpful for you. You know, sometimes details are good, but then one is getting lost in the details, and sometimes shortness is good, but then maybe it becomes too superficial or not powerful enough. So therefore, yes, it's sort of up to the reader, you know, up to the audience, up to us practitioners to see what we need in that present moment. Shantideva normally is starting each topic, you know, or each chapter with a short summary. So that is for those who love the short versions. And then there's also a long, detailed explanation than usually. But we will come soon, you know, to like 27 situations where we apply these prescribed behaviors. Okay. 37. And this is, I'm sure that we can understand it metaphorically as well, but this apparently is really like related to how monks and nuns used to live, you know. At Buddha's time in India, they had to travel, like, you know, on foot, by foot, through forests and valleys and mountains, and then maybe cliffs and wild animals. So it was dangerous, you know. So here there's a certain discipline how to protect oneself, you know, when walking and traveling on dangerous paths. Actually, back to Medya's question, this is like Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche is often praising, you know, that Bodhicaryavatara because it's so applicable, you know, because it's every little thing is explained, how to wash your hand, you know, how to point the direction and so on. And here just now how to look, and now here how to walk in a dangerous, if you have a travel to do, you know, if it's dangerous. So therefore here Shantideva is saying, 37, to check if there's any danger on the path, I should look again and again in the four directions. So here with consciousness, with awareness, you know, again and again, slowly and one-pointedly, you look around, you know, east, west, north, south, up, above and below, you know, and every intermediate directions, you know. Try to see if there's any danger or risk, you know. Like natural things, you know, or animals, or wild animals, or maybe bandits again, you know, in the forest. I heard there were many gangs, you know, and Tokme Sangpo was often having encounters with them. Of course, you can of course apply it internally as usual, you know, that the dangers are of course the negative emotions, but all commentaries here apply to the external world. And therefore I will do the same. And then to rest, I should turn my head around. Again, we look everywhere. And look head around and then look behind me. And then also we look back, by turning our whole body and see if everything is okay. And yes, this I think we also do, when we sit in the metro or in a restaurant or cinema, once you stand up from your seat, look behind and check if you didn't forget anything, So in the commentaries, it says also like that, if you travel, then always, if you have rested somewhere, then look behind when you leave that place, that you don't forget your belongings. Yeah, very practical advice. And then 38. Having examined both ahead and behind, so when we check like that, and don't see any danger anywhere, I should proceed to either come or go. So then, we go into the direction that is safe, If we see some danger here, then we go there, Being aware of the necessity for such mindful alertness, I should behave like this in all situations. So, of course, we try to have that alertness, that mindfulness in any ways of life, And here, the commentators really, they're here now. They don't apply it anymore to a travel, but just when you are with others, then check, properly, in all directions. What is the other person needing? What does the other person want, What is the aim of the other person? How can I help the other person? Really check in all 10 directions and then act accordingly. And of course, also what we need, we should really look into our mind in all directions, back and forth, and see what we need at the moment, what, not need in the way of okay, I need ice cream, but what, is there any thing that needs a remedy in my mental state at the moment? And this checking, that is here the important point, And Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche says here in this verse it starts, and also in the next verse it's coming. There's a little bit implicitly a teaching on the 4 mindfulnesses. This also we find a lot in the Abhidharma teachings, like Abhidharma Kosha. And also there are sutras on that, the 4 mindfulnesses. And also we have a very Madhyamika approach on the 4 mindfulnesses in the 9th chapter here by Shantideva. And the 4 mindfulnesses, they always have the same object, body, feeling, mind, and phenomena, or dharmas, or reference points. But then but then in the different yanas, there are a little bit different ways of being mindful of these same objects. So we try to be, especially the first 3 are important, because body, feeling, and mind, these are the first 3. This is normally the thing that we identify with. Wait, I need some light here. Normally, this is my body, if somebody is stepping on my toes, don't step on me, or I am, my feelings is something we really identify with, I am jealous, I have all the right to do so. Or the mind, yes, that is me, perceiving things, Dzogchen Ponop Rinpoche is saying, according to the Brahmana teachings, the mind that is clear and aware. So so we identify with this clarity or awareness, that we have. So that is normally how we identify, and of course names and everything, but name is more like the fourth mindfulness, regarding to Dharma, Dharma here in not in capital letters, but small, like phenomena or reference points. So anyway, so here it is important with mindfulness and alertness to know the state or the movement of our body, of our feeling, of our mind. And then again, not to get entangled in the movements of these. It is therefore helpful to remain like a piece of wood. I'm sure you have heard that from Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche, this just sitting, which comes from Japanese Buddhist tradition, I think, or Chinese, where you just sit, that is also like remaining like a piece of wood. I think that is again the stoicness, or is also that creating the gap kind of thing. So that means we're just sitting, we are not visualizing, we're not sending lights in and out. We are no mantras to be recited, no mudras to be performed, no sadhanas to be read, nothing. But we just sit and we are mindful and aware of what is happening in our mind, in our feeling, and in our body or body parts, And that creates so much awareness of what is going on there. Normally we are not aware of what is going on in the corners of our mind. Normally we are not aware of subtle or undercurrent feelings, and normally we are not aware what our body is moving. What my hands are doing, or how my head is tilted or not. And so that is the idea here, that we are becoming more aware of all that. And so next verses, then, or especially, the next verses then go into these mindfulnesses of body, feeling, and mind. But before that, Medya here is writing something. To behave like this in all situations, constant checking, how to make that not tiring, because I'm familiar with that and eventually I usually exhausted. But Shantideva puts analogy to strengthen our mindfulness. Does Shantideva mention to check versus to just knowing in order to strengthen mindfulness? Yes, okay, it's definitely not a conceptual approach so much, a little bit maybe in the beginning, but yes, as I said, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche is translating it as watcher, or in the book it says vigilance, or in other contexts you can say awareness, and in the beginning that is contrived, yes, and it is therefore exhausting, because you put some effort into it, because it's not your habit. But then the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Like yesterday, I used the word like it becomes your second nature, but actually it's your first nature, to be aware. But so it becomes it becomes more and more easy, and then less and less effortful. And then you're just watching. You're just knowing what is happening. Like checking, that word you use, I'm sure I used it also in the terms of introspection. Yes, that is a little bit more the beginning stage, which is necessary, But then it becomes more knowing, yes. And you're just, you just know, you're just aware of what is happening with your body, with your feeling, with your mind, or with the phenomena in the context of these four mindfulnesses. Because the idea is, it should be made sustainable, you know. If you have to put a lot of effort, then, as you said, you know, it's not sustainable. Then you get exhausted. Therefore, here we have to find a way that it's relaxed or natural, and that you can do it for a long time. But it's, again, with everything, you know. I don't know how to say that in English. In German, it's very easy. Like, it says something like repetition or familiarization.
Fake it till make it.
Makes you become a master, you know. Yeah. So therefore, that is important. That in the beginning, meditation is annoying, or is maybe not relaxed, or is effortful. But then the more often you do, the less exhausting it is, you know, and the more natural, and then it's sustainable. Yes, I hope that makes sense. Okay, and then we are in verse 39. And normally the thing is, normally we don't have that awareness. We don't have that mindfulness. We don't have the knowing. And therefore, normally we are very much spaced out, you know. We are mindless. And I don't know if you have ever received teachings about elegance and outrageousness, you know. But if we are mindless, you know, we become very inelegant, you know, very there's not much dignity. So here, therefore, the mindfulness is important, and the knowing aspect. And so verse 39 is saying, once having prepared for an action with this thought, my body will remain in such a way. Then periodically I should look to see how the body is being maintained. So obviously here it's more about mindfulness of the body that Shantideva is referring to, according to Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche. And so whatever we do with our body, and normally, there are like four activities, right? Like walking, laying down, I think sitting and moving around, or eating, I forgot. So whatever our body is doing out of these, you know, and we should first, for example, now when we are sitting, you know, we should be, in the beginning, we should decide, you know, about our physical posture. And so I want to place my body like this, in this posture, you know, like in meditation, often we have the 7-point posture of Vajrayana. But whatever is good for you, the main thing is your spine is straight. So that is sort of how we want to sit. And then the second two lines here of 39, then again and again I examine, you know, from time to time, I examine, or I know, or I check, or I'm aware of what my body is doing. And then I examine myself, you know, again and again, you know. And that is now the mindfulness of the body, you know. You ask yourself, okay, what is my body posture now, you know? Is it like lopsided, you know, or crooked, or is it straight, you know? How are my eyes? How is my mouth? What are my hands doing? And all of that. So that is here important to just be aware, you know, what the body is doing. And as Tanya said, in yoga and many other traditions, that is the case. You know, that is important to know. And and we should have that awareness. And from Buddhist point of view, that helps us really to be here, you know. We can use the breathing, you know. And Dzogchen Rinpoche says, you know, the breathing is very good because it's always there and it's for free, and it's happening naturally. So we can also use the breathing, you know, how is my breathing, to come back to the body, to be here more in the present moment. So these are like questions we can ask, you know, what is my body doing at this moment, without judging it, you know, just observing it, just watching it. And then, of course, we can also apply that to our feeling, you know. We can ask so many things, you know, like here, like I have here, like whatever that you call it, blessing cord, you know. Normally, maybe I'm not aware of feeling it, you know, or my glasses, you know. There are so many things we normally don't feel, you know, or we are not, no, we feel them, but we are not aware that we are feeling them. You know, if I'm sitting, you know, do I feel the cushion, you know? Or do I feel the shirt, you know? Or maybe do I feel the breeze, you know, touching my cheek, you know? Or, I don't know, do I feel that my flip-flops are falling down, you know, from my feet, you know, whatever. So, and of course then also emotions, you know, do I feel like anxious, or do I have attachment or aversion, you know? All this, there are so many more subtle things going on in our feelings that we are normally not aware. And so here we try again to have that gap, or to slow down the whole process, so that we are more aware what is happening with our body and feeling here in this context, you know, and that we really know what is happening. But normally we don't do that because our mind is always thinking about the next thing, you know, what I will do next, you know, in the next hour, in the next moment, in the next day, in the next situation. And therefore we are never really here, you know, we are never really feeling what is happening, or we are not really aware of what we are feeling, or we are not really aware what our mind is thinking. We're not really aware of how our body is moving. Or Pallavi says, can mindfulness be likened to knowing? Yes, that's what I mean. And Medya, I think, brought that up. Yes. In some parents, knowing is likened to instinct or intuition. Oh, I don't think in that way. Knowing is just mere knowing. You know, we merely know what is happening. Very simple. Just knowing it. Instinct and intuition, I think, in the West is more used. I know you're from India, so West doesn't count. But instinct and intuition is normally more used to, I don't know, seeing something or feeling something specific that maybe is not visible to the eyes. I don't know. But here, yes, as you said, knowing and watching is the same here. You know, we are just aware. We are just watching. We're just observing. We want to create more of that. And knowing is not a conceptual knowing. You know, that is maybe the confusion here. It's just a consciousness. You know, being conscious or aware of whatever is happening. Really, that is the main thing in the whole Buddhism, you know, to be aware, to know. Why? Because if we study the 12 links of interdependence, the root of them, the main culprit, is not knowing, you know, unawareness. And so that's why. And that is how the trouble starts, you know. That is like the engine of and the mechanism of samsara. So therefore, not knowing is the problem, and therefore knowing is the answer. And I think, as you say, cognition, I think it's the same, you know. Like even etymologically, you know, cog and know, it all comes actually from Sanskrit, from jnana, you know, jna. And then we have Greek like gignosko, or Latin like I don't know the how it ends the word, you know, but they all come back to that, you know, like knowing or cognizing. But yeah, as Media says, you know, without concepts or labeling or designations or analysis, just knowing. That's why you know, just watching, not getting entangled, and so on. It's a little bit difficult because, again, we are so used to get entangled. We are so used to put names onto it, you know. Are we so used to like it or dislike whatever is happening? So that is a little bit, quite our habit, you know, which is totally samsaric, and therefore we have to undo that habit, you know. Yeah, sometimes, you know, when you are like, let's say you are here, we have a nice park, you know, in Berlin called Zoologischer Garten. And then there are nice trees and nice plants and maybe nice butterflies or birds. And I was there on Friday. But if you, on Friday, what I'm just saying now is not, this didn't happen on Friday, you know, but like sometimes, you know, like last year I was with somebody, and then that somebody was like, yeah, when there's a nice bird, then this person has the urge to know the name of the bird, you know, to put a label on it, or on a nice plant, you know, or on a nice whatever, a butterfly. And that sometimes I have the feeling, you know, this labeling process distance us from the phenomena, you know, or from appreciating the beauty, because we want to put things into boxes or relate to it in a certain label, conceptual designation kind of way. So I think that should not be done like that here, you know, but here it's just watching. Here's just being aware of whatever is happening. You know, just being aware that my hand is moving, you know. That's it, you know. No need to say it's fast or hectic or useless or elegant. Yeah. Okay. Then verse 40, with the utmost effort. So here we are effort, you know. In the beginning, effort is super important. Otherwise, we will not change, you know. But then by training, everything becomes effortless. So with the utmost effort, I should check to see that the crazed elephant of my mind is not wandering off, but is bound to the great pillar of thinking about Dharma. Yeah, this example we had a couple of times with Shantideva, right? You remember I think in ancient India, it was like that. You had like elephants, and maybe they were even crazy, or you made them drunk, you know, and then you sent them to the next village that you want to destroy. and it's a effective weapon, you know, such a crazy and mad elephant that is even drunk. So likewise here, that is usually used, you know, as an example. So the elephant is our mind, and the madness or drunkenness are the kleshas, you know, the afflictions and obscurations in our mind. And yes, that mad elephant out there can can destroy the neighboring village, which means that mind that is so full of afflictions can do so much harm. And And yes, it's obviously very powerful, and therefore we need utmost effort, to tame that crazy elephant, or to bind that crazy elephant. To make it slower and less destructive. So therefore it says, we should really try to tame that elephant and make sure that it's bound to the great pillar. The binding is always the mindfulness, the leash you have. And the pillar is the Dharma. Or maybe a specific topic of the Dharma, Bodhisattva or whatever you want. And so you put your mind very closely, bind your mind very closely to that strong pillar. It's a strong pillar, the Dharma. And that will help taming the elephant, taming our crazy, drunken mind. But and I'm sure you have seen also the 9 stages of shamatha. There's also the elephant is shown. And there's also the rope of mindfulness and all of that. And here Marina is saying, yes, exactly. When you say bind the mind, it is like directing the mind to contemplate on that Dharma topic. Yes, on something what is positive and truthful. Yes. You can also bind the mind by drinking a lot of vodka. Maybe, then maybe your mind is less wild. It also works, but it's not not so sustainable and has more side effects. Therefore, Dharma, if you translate Dharma as truth, then yes, we want to bind our mind to the truth. That is sustainable. That is that doesn't have side effects. Because if your pillar here, that is mentioned by Shantideva, is something that has side effects, like vodka or smoking or whatever, then you create just other problems while trying to solve the first one, and then you have the second problem, and then you need a second pillar, and it could go on and on. Therefore, always try to find a good pillar here that is reliable and that is really the solution. And Dharma, as translated as the truth, is the solution. Or Bodhisattva as the motivation is the solution without side effects. So therefore, that is something we can happily bind our mind to. Okay, then maybe the last verse for today, 41. And thank you already for being very interactive here. Those who strive by all means for concentration should not wander off even a moment. So that is the main point. We try not to have a wandering, distractive mind, and not even for a moment. Of course, that is very idealistic, and as a beginner, as I said earlier, I forgot which time period I mentioned, but maybe 20 minutes or 1.5 hours, where we are distracted or wandering without knowing it. So here we really try to be as idealistic as possible, and don't have a distracted mind, not having a wandering mind, because that is the Tibetan word for sentient beings, wanderers. In Tibetan, it's drova, like aimlessly wandering, in samsara, of course, and that comes from distraction. That comes from, basically having attachment and aversion, You're wandering towards what you're attached to, and you're wondering what you have aversion to, and it's so aimless and so useless, That is and endless, and that is what samsara is. This constant wandering. So therefore, basically the moment you're not wandering, in that moment you're out of samsara, but the moment you're wandering, you are the usual samsaric suspect here. And therefore here the third mindfulness is important. By thinking, how is my mind behaving? So here we are trying to, again, knowing, being aware, being mindful, being vigilant about our mind. And also, and that comes here, that is a little bit Madhyamika specific, which comes a lot in the 9th chapter. One should closely analyze the mind. So there are also, also the others, what was body and feeling, you will see in the 9th chapter, it's not mere knowing only, like just knowing, but then if you want, you can have an analytical meditation, where you then contemplate and analyze the mind or the feeling or the body, the body parts and ending up with atoms and ending up with emptiness, or the feeling will be analyzed, the cause of the feelings, the results of the feeling. And also the mind, Shantideva is doing that in the 9th chapter, and I'm sure you know that from other teachings also, we look for the shape of the mind, we look for the location of the mind, the color of the mind, and so on, And here also we do that, we check, what is my mind doing? How is my mind behaving? And yes, all of that is vipassana, as Pallavi says. So what is my mind doing? Where is my mind at the moment? Where is my mind going at the moment? We can ask all these different things. And you can also ask, where's the Buddha nature? Is it really in the mind or not? Or is it somewhere else? Or are we in the Buddha nature? Or is, you can ask, And the answers are important, yes, but just the question and the journey here is important. So these questions are important, And then, of course, again, if we start to wander, if we start to be distracted, then we just come back, As I said yesterday, when we notice that we are distracted or wandering, that is a cause for celebration and not a cause for feeling guilty, Because the moment we know that we are wandering, or the moment we know that we have been distracted, in that moment we are back in meditation, That moment of knowing the distraction is actually the meditation again, So therefore, that can be done again and again. Okay, that's it for today. And there's one question from Berlin. What is the relation between vigilance and discipline? Was that the same, or is one a method and the other something to accomplish? Yes, it's a method. Vigilance is a method to accomplish discipline. So there are like 5 steps usually explained. First step is like understanding the Dharma and what is to adopt and what is to avoid. Like lying should be avoided and honesty should be adopted, for example. That is the first step. And then the second step is mindfulness or remembrance, where we remind ourselves, of what the teachers have said. Lying should not be done, and honesty should be done. Just remembering that. And then the third step is vigilance. So we just watch our mind and our speech in this example of lying. And then we check, oh, am I tempted to lie? And that is the vigilance to know, oh, there is a temptation to lie. And then the fourth step then is carefulness or conscientiousness, where we then remember, yeah, lying creates problems, honesty is more truthful. That is what my teacher has said, that is what I understand. Therefore, I'm not following my temptations to lie. That is then the fourth step of carefulness or conscientiousness, which is covered in the chapter 4 of Bodhicaryavatara. And then the next step then is discipline, because then we are really, the discipline is then really the result, then we really made sure that we are not lying, but by that we really make sure that we follow the instructions of our teachers, which is honesty in that example. And that is the discipline. We then live truthfully, honestly, straightforwardly. And that is the result. That is then number 5, the discipline. Yes. So everything else was all the 4 steps first, the study and hearing and contemplation on the Dharma, then the mindfulness and remembrance, then the vigilance, and then the carefulness. All this are just methods and tools to accomplish that discipline of honesty in this example. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for your attentiveness. And yes, let's meet soon again. Medya asked already. And yes, please take good care. Please, I don't know yet when the next session is. I have to check the calendar and then it will be sent around. Please dedicate the merit to all sentient beings who are unfortunately suffering, even though they want to be happy. And unfortunately, they create more causes for suffering because they are ignorant. And we are not looking down at ignorance. We all have that. So it's a sad situation, samsara, and at the moment we have extra sadness with many people dying and suffering from the virus. So whatever positive came out of the session, please dedicate that to all beings in general, and of course everybody who is especially suffering at the moment in particular. And thank you guys, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. And it was very nice to see the videos again today. So many faces from somewhere. Okay, thank you. Take good care.